The 5-a-day recommendation that's been adopted by several national dietary guidelines, some institutes and agencies, is an interesting example of the pre-negotiation that happens between dietary guidelines and the general public. Now, there is definitely science to support 5-a-day, the strongest being this huge meta-analysis published in 2014 in the British Medical Journal, which actually showed that 5 servings of fruits and vegetables per day was the threshold above which there was no additional benefit, but that level of intake reduced risk of all-cause mortality, a general indicator of health and longevity, by 25%, if I remember correctly. And this study that is used to rationalize the 5-a-day guidelines also showed that optimally, 3 of those servings would be vegetables and 2 of those servings would be fruit. So how is this a pre-negotiation? 2 servings of fruit per day is in line with where most of the scientific evidence is. Most meta-analyses that look at this question conclude 2 to 3 servings as being optimal for improving long-term health. But 3 servings per vegetables is the lowest I've seen in these large meta-analyses. And there's far more meta-analyses that conclude 5 servings of vegetables per day as being optimal. But when the data is mixed, it means that there's room for interpretation and negotiation. National dietary guidelines have to balance several different competing interests in how they devise the guidelines. There's economics and politics, and yes, pre-negotiation with the public. Based, I think, on an unfair assumption that we don't want to eat a healthy diet, or that it's too hard. So yes, there is science to support 5 a day, more science to support 7 a day. But the guidelines adopt 5 a day because they think that's probably already too hard for you. They think that, especially in the context of so few people, like only 8% of people are even trying to follow the USDA dietary guidelines for Americans. They think that in that context, if they make healthy eating too far away from how the average American eats, that even more people will tune out the guidelines. So those recommendations are partly crafted with the assumption that you can't handle where the science is really at. Or at least most of the science. I mean, again, the data is varied. There is room for interpretation here. But given that there is room for interpretation, the dietary guidelines are going to interpret it in a way that sets the bar as low as possible. I definitely think there's an argument to be made for lowering the barrier to entry to healthy eating. Absolutely. But I also think that the goal should be set where scientific consensus is forming. And I think that failing to do so undermines scientific credibility while treating us all like kids. My view this morning. What a beautiful morning. Oh, can you wait, please? Yeah, you're dry, so why don't we stay that way?